What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. You might be wondering why I'm on the moon right now dancing with my hunter, and part of that is because the moon just looks so amazing, but also too because the Destiny 1 game was home to some of the most iconic and recognizable weapons in this franchise's history. In this video, I'm going to go over the top 5 exotic weapons from Destiny 1 that I want to see return in Destiny 2. I'm also going to go over some of the ways that these weapons can be improved or return to their former glory via the Destiny 2 Catalyst system. So, let's get things started. What is the number 5 weapon on my list that I want to see come back? Well, it is the most recognizable weapon in this game's history, and of course I'm talking about the Gjallarhorn. Now, this is a weapon that I don't care who you talk to, everyone can tell you when they got their first Gjallarhorn. This is a weapon that inspired fan reactions, a myriad of videos, and for good reason, because it was that good of a weapon to use throughout a majority of this game's history. Now, with this weapon, I think it's a surefire bet to come back to Destiny 2 at some point because of how good it is and because of how easy it is to recognize this weapon. And I think with this, it'd be nice to come back too from a practical standpoint because there's not many good exotic rocket launchers in Destiny 2 right now. And I think from a game standpoint, it just makes sense for this to come back. The difficult thing is how good should it be? I don't think it would ever come back to where it was Destiny 1 Year 1, where it was a weapon that you would never unequip because it was that good. I think the likely thing is it would fall right between where it was from Year 1 and this version that I have right now, the Iron Gjallarhorn version. What I would like to see is the base level be closer to Iron Gjallarhorn, and then you use a catalyst as a way to not quite bump it back up to its dominant level from Year 1, but to get it close to that where it's a top tier, easily weapon that you want to use in a variety of situations. So maybe the catalyst is a bump or an increase in damage for the Wolfpack rounds. I think that would be a simple way of making this the Gjallarhorn that we all know, remember, and inspired all those crazy fan reactions. So this is number 5 on my list. If not for anything else, just because I wouldn't want to put it at number 1 because that kind of seems cliche. But Iron Gjallarhorn for sure, can almost guarantee that it'll come back at some point. So we just talked about PvE quite a bit. Let's go more towards PvP. And at number 4 on my list is a weapon that everybody knows, everybody feared, and this is a weapon that I think will definitely come back too because it fits with the narrative in Destiny, and that is the Thorn hand cannon. Now, this weapon here, we know Last Word's coming back. Thorn is kind of the corollary to Last Word, so I think that this would come back at some point as well. And we already have seen that damage over time has come back with the Monarch bow. So the precedent has been set for this type of weapon to come back. Just like with Gjallarhorn though, I don't see this coming back anywhere near where it was in its peak. This is a weapon that could more or less snipe people from sniping range in Crucible, and 2 headshots would take people out with that damage over time. So I doubt that we'd see that type of weapon. But I would love to see this come back because it fits with that narrative of the darkness being used by Guardians. And also, too, I think it would bring some great optionality to Crucible. Right now, in Crucible, even with the weapon slot changes, it's still more or less kind of dominated by a certain type of weapon. And I think with Thorn coming back, with Last Word coming back, that's really going to give players some tough choices on which weapon they want to use. So I want to see Thorn come back. Honestly, I wouldn't be upset if it came back at its peak level, but I don't see that happening. I see it more being a damage over time, adding some additional damage, but not being something game-breaking like it was, like it arguably was before. So what would the perk for this be? I think the signature perk for this weapon kind of stands on its own. So in my opinion, the catalyst for this would more than likely be something like just increasing the range or maybe increasing the magazine. Those two things would definitely add some practical value, but not to the point where they're going to make it Year 1 version where it just destroyed people. So that's number 4 on my list. Let's go to number 3. This is a weapon that, just like the Last Word, there's a strong indication that it'll be back as well. And these Vandals are kind of beating me up here. But the Icebreaker is a weapon that I think is definitely going to come back too. And also I think it's just like with the Gjallarhorn, it's sorely needed in that weapon category. So Icebreaker is a weapon that, while not quite to the same degree as the Gjallarhorn, this is a weapon that remained in people's loadouts pretty consistently, especially when you were trying to do things like solo nightfalls and ammo was a consideration. I think if they brought back the Icebreaker, this is one where it would bump up the exotic sniper rifles. I mean, right now it's pretty much Whisper or Darcy or Borealis or Bust. I know they're adding that new exotic sniper rifle with Black Armory, but this is a weapon I think most people would get behind because of how cool it was to use. Just like with Thorn, the signature perk for Icebreaker stands on its own. So I think the catalyst for this, you could go two ways. You could either go with a unique version of Box Breathing and have it compete directly with Whisper and Darcy, or you could go and make the ammo recharge rate better. I know that for this weapon, when it first came out, the recharge rate, I believe, was every 6 seconds, and then they bumped it, or they reduced it, or increased it rather, I'm sorry, to 8 seconds. So I think you could make the catalyst the way of getting it back down to the original 6 seconds, and that would make this even more viable to use in PvE and also in PvP too. We saw that used quite a bit in PvP at some point in Destiny 1 as well. So this is a weapon where I'd love to see it come back. It would give you more choices for the special weapon slot, and it would give you some additional optionality to use in both PvE and PvP. So we've gone over Gjallarhorn, we've gone over Thorn, and we've gone over Icebreaker. We have 2 weapons left. The number 2 weapon on this list is one that I want to see come back, partially because of what it would entail, and I'm talking about the Vex Mythic Glass from the Vault of Glass raid. Now, I am partial to Vault of Glass. It is still my favorite raid throughout all of Destiny. So part of this is because I think in order to bring this weapon back, you would have to bring back those old raids, right? So, and we can talk about that in a future video, but I would love to see this weapon come back. It's a weapon that was more feared, I'd say, than any weapon in Crucible for that brief period of time when it was at its pre-nerf level. This is a weapon that was pretty much dominating in Crucible, and I think if he brought it back, just like with Last Word, just like with Thorn, you're going to give players some really tough choices on which weapon they want to use in Crucible. This, of course, is a weapon that was more geared towards Crucible, and with that in mind, I think the perk for this, the catalyst for this, should give it some additional muscle in PvE. So because this is a Vex weapon, I think one thing you could do is have this do unique damage or additional damage versus Vex enemies. That would be nice, especially if the raid came back. This would be useful in the raid. But also, too, I think just having that very unique type of perk would make this that much better. So I want to see Vex come back. Like I said, you would need to bring the old raids back. Maybe you could bring them back via the Infinite Forest, and we can talk about that in a later video. But the Vex, one of the best weapons from Destiny 1 and PvP, got to have it come back here in Destiny 2. So, with those 4 weapons in mind, what is the number 1 weapon that I want to see come back in Destiny 2? Well, for me, it's a pretty simple answer, because once I got this, it was hard to unequip it, and that is the Raised Lighter Exotic Sword. This came out when the Taken King came out, and it was very tough to get. This was a weapon that was time-consuming, but it was equally rewarding once you did get it. And I think with this, it'd be a pair or a trio. You'd have to bring back Dark Drinker and Boltcaster as well. And I personally would like to see these tied to the Pinnacle reward system. The Raised Lighter could obviously be, of course, with Shaxx. We know Shaxx still had this, at least when Gaul attacked the city. This would be a nice way of having a quest to reforge this weapon, this amazing weapon from Destiny 1. You could have Zavala, our boy Z, have the Boltcaster, and then you could have Ikora be the Pinnacle reward for the Dark Drinker. I think that would be a nice way of spreading these 3 swords around. And you'd make the Pinnacle rewards somewhat difficult and time-consuming because the rewards are so great, but not out of the reach of most players. I think, for instance, for the Raised Lighter, have that be for Crucible, but have it be tied to your Valor rank and not have it be something that is locked behind the competitive play that we've seen for things like Luna. I think making this more accessible to people is a better alternative to making it extremely tough to get. But I'd love to see this weapon come back. It was one where, like I said, once I got it, it was hard to unequip this because of how much damage it would do against even the most strong of adversaries in Destiny 1. This is a weapon that pretty much dominated on its own, so I don't know how you can really improve it with the Catalyst. I think just something basic like increasing the amount of ammo would be really useful for that weapon. You could always go a bit more out of the box too and make it where the R2 attack would give damage over time by lighting the enemy on fire. But I think from that standpoint, this is a weapon that's going to be amazing on its own, and just having additional ammo would be most beneficial. So those are the 5 weapons I want to see come back. You have Gjallarhorn, you have Thorn, you have Icebreaker, Vex, and Raised Lighter. Those are the 5 weapons I want to see come back. What I want to see from you guys is in the comments, let me know the top 5 exotic weapons that you want to see come back in Destiny 2. Also, what are your ideas for the Catalyst? I know I gave out my ideas, but I'm really curious. I want to read what you guys think would be cool ways for the exotic of your choice to have that Destiny 2 flavor.